Next, we'll learn another keyword, throws. It's used as a second way to handle exceptions. It's meant to be a way of naming exceptions. Okay, back to the code. You see a demo here. Then create a test class for this demo. And then in here, the same method that you just wrote, method that we wrote earlier. Okay, so at this point we know that this block of code is not likely to have an exception. So we can shred the meat here. So what's the advantage of throws exception? When you call, for example, there is no exception in this block. But since we're using throws, it means that this method tells the caller that there might be an exception. So that's why you need to handle our method. And there are two ways to do that. The first one, you can do a try-catch process here. Okay, let's look at the first way. After processing, we'll print it out. Okay, then we go to execute. Everyone see if it's a 1 and a 3. That is to say, at this time this exception is not appearing. Then if there is an exception, then the result of this execution must be to and 3. That means when we add the throws, it tells the caller, I have to handle this exception. Then there is another way. Let's look at the second way. I'll get rid of this piece. Okay, here it is. There may be an exception. This time I can also choose. That is, in this position, I'll declare this too. The exception is no longer there. Let's go to the execution. This time he is able to pass the checked. But once we have an exception, the exception is not yet handled. It's called a declarative exception. Declare that the exception effect is that checked variations may occur. Let it checked. Checked exception is included in exception. That's why we're here. We're going to check it. That's what I mean. Okay, let's go back to the PowerPoint. In the actual development, most of the time we call methods written by others. But we don't know if there are any exceptions in other people's methods. In this case, we use the throws keyword after the method to declare the possible exceptions of the method, so that when the caller calls the method, we'll know that it has an exception. Then this must be handled in the program, and we handle it in two ways. One is to try catch, or try catch finally. Another option is to use throws to declare. The statement is not really processed. It's essentially giving the exception back to the caller. And that caller is the JVM. For this declaration to be an exception, it's only useful for getting through check and informs the caller. It doesn't really deal with it. They're declarations. You can declare more than one exception. For example, when I declare an exception, multiple exceptions can be declared this way. This has already been demonstrated. If you don't handle it, he won't execute. And then we've got two examples. One is the try-catch approach. The other is a direct declaration. So this is a study of the keywords. Learn about the keyword throws. Next, learn another keyword throw. First of all, it's different from the word and this keyword. There is a difference between the throws. It cannot be used for method declarations. It's inside the method. It means to throw an exception. In other words, create an exception object. So at this point some students may have questions. Why do we need to create an exception object? This is the same reason. Is that when we want to call a method, we're not sure what information the method will tell us. Then we can pass the information through the exception to pass the information. To show him an example, to show how it works. For example, let's say we find a demo 6. Now we call a method. We can pass it something like a num. So at this point, we can judge here. If the number is equal to 1, we use throw. This time we can in the method. We can pass a message here. For example, number is 1. When we call this method, in this position, does it throw an exception? This is used within the method to execute it. See if an exception is thrown at this point. If it is not the one that's passed, then we don't have an exception at this time. Let me give you a question. We have a requirement for keyboard entry of student information. Student information includes name and age. Then encapsulate the student object. But then, that is, if this age is between 18 and 25. Including 18 and 25. Then in between, we consider the age to be legitimate. Then we can use the encapsulation. But if it's not, then let him re-enter it. Re-enter it. Well then, there's time to think. To accomplish such a case, so first we have a student class student. Corresponds to his inside we write this to attributes. And then we take his constructor. Well, create the class first. And then at this point in Tessier, we call it keyboard entry. Okay. For keyboard entry, we write scanner. Okay, then here let him type. Please enter. Student's name. There's no requirement for a name. Then, we can create a student object. Let's add a while loop. In this loop, let him prompt for the student's age. Let's see if he meets the requirements. Then we can pass the anomaly. At this time, what if he loses someone younger than 18 or older than 25? We can be based on such a. The way is to say here to make a judgment. Because you want to adjust this method, if a system if the age is under 18 or if the age is over 25. So we can use the throw now. Then here can prompt a sentence. Age is not legal. Then next, let's look at the method. When we call this inside, is not there may be an exception, so that in this. So let's use try catch. If this exception is caught, it shows if he is of an illegal age. We should give him. At this point, you should re-enter. Then we'd better give him a hint. The age you entered is not legal. In fact, there is a hint here. Actually, if there's no exception, then we should put 1 in this position. Okay, let's do it. Please enter your name. Let's enter Zhongsan. I'll enter the age of 10 years old. At this time, we can use this exception appeared. I'll enter another one. 28 is not illegal. 20 is okay. In other words, can then pass this information to the caller. And based on this exception, we can combine a while loop. This is a specific application of throw. So let's go back to the PPT. The difference between dead meat and shredded meat is a focus of learning. They are not used in the same way. Throws are in method declarations, and throw is inside the method. In addition, we throw an exception. Sometimes it is necessary to start a process with the throws keyword, or try catch to do a processing. Just throw it out. We're doing it with a try catch. Okay, so this is learning about throw.